This lesson will teach you how to use words to emphasize and to make images in your listener's mind. This way you can really touch their hearts. It's called Elocutio. That means words of beauty and accuracy, words chosen with the utmost care. So the more time you spend on choosing the correct words, the larger is the chance that you will reach them. First of all, think about the words so that they are distinct. Be very accurate and exact, so there can be no misconceptions, and so specify and also simplify. You need to think about who is listening here. Do they understand what you're saying? Are you talking to people who are academics? Use an academic language. Are you talking to other people? Think about them. And also be clear. The denotation of a word versus its connotations and associations. I'll show you this later. We will have a look at description and evidentia, how to create clear visual pictures that touch the listener's feelings. And think about one thing. Avoid babbling. Delete and shorten unnecessary phrases. Is this needed to convey a feeling or a meaning or an argumentation? Take it away. How to be distinct? Well, you have the actual meaning versus associations. For instance, denotation. That's the real significance of a word that you find in the encyclopedia. Connotation, on the other hand, is the unique references each individual has in relation to words and concepts. Look at this one. If you say candy to a child, it's very positive, but for the dentist, oh no, it's not nice. And that means that going to the dentist is not very nice. Recodification. That means that you describe a group, you change it and its status. If you say black is beautiful, then you change the view of things and make it positive. If you use effects and surprise, if you use a word incorrectly to stress something important, but then you really need to know the cultural references and codes so you don't make a mistake and hurt somebody's feelings. How about ambiguities? What is the real reference? If you use the wrong kind, you can destroy your ethos if you're too vague or if you don't keep your promises. If you use metaphorizations, you can do that to hide or point out something specific. Hitler made use of the body and vermin, symbolizing Jews. So this was so horrible. But it's also possible to apply a metaphor to the human mankind. We are all like one body, so even the little finger is a part of this. And it will suffer. My little finger will suffer. Then my entire body will suffer. So if one part of humanity suffers, we all suffer. What's euphemism then? It's an exchange of a word that sounds less serious and more beautiful in order for something disagreeable to look at a little bit better. For instance, it's difficult for us to talk about death, so we often say she's gone to rest instead of she has died. A denotation, as I said, is the clear explanation of a word. Fishing, also called angling, the sport of catching fish. However, what is your personal connotation of fishing? Is it positive or negative? Is it like this, sitting on a lake, enjoying winter fishing, or being out with your child? Or do you think about fishermen taking all the fish from our seas? There is also something, connotation can also be different worldviews. This is Europe viewed by the Americans, made by a satire artist. And this is Europe viewed by the French. The French are in the city, in the middle, and the rest of us are a little bit all around. And it's kind of funny, this picture, but it also shows that if you talk to someone, you really need to be aware that what is their reference, so you don't assume that they have the same point of view as you do. If we come to description and evidentia, that is like paint using your words as colors and make your audience visualize an inner image of the message that you want to convey. You can use the 5 senses, the vision, the hearing, the sense of smell, the perception of touch and taste, by using pleasant words and unexpected impressions, but this requires some time and that you prepare well. For instance, summer, strawberry cake, frosty winter's day, roses. All of the listeners will start associating and think about it, perhaps feel something. And then we come to something that if you become good at this, it can really help you when you have a speech or when you write. And this is called ornatus, adornment, images, repetitions, contradictions. You call it a metaphorical language, tropes, because this gives your speech color. You replace your words for an image, for instance, a metaphor or a parable. Like threatening clouds, unemployment, inflation, and giant national debts pile up along the horizon of Sweden. That's quite scary, isn't it? But you don't talk about economical terms here. You use the nature to show how scary it is. Or if a man talks to a woman, he can say, "Your eyes shine like fire in the darkness of the night, like a beacon of light." This is it's a beautiful way of saying it. We talk a lot about parachutes today, and that's also a metaphor, the CEO's parachutes. But we can also use something as the spring of life, and it becomes very beautiful. If we use personification, that's thoughts and ideas that take a human shape. Her conscience struck her. Of course, our conscience cannot beat us. It's a way of speaking. And we often say repetition is the mother of the skill. There is no mother there, but we use the personification to explain. We can also use trees, plants, and metaphors. But here we got rhetorical figures, when you want to inculcate something of great importance. If you use allusions, you can refer to something real or fictive that you know that a person or the listener should know. It turned out to be his Waterloo. And we know what happened at Waterloo. Napoleon lost. If you make an antithesis, you have good versus evil, darkness versus light. So you have two things against one another. This is quite often used by politicians. If you don't vote at me, this is the effect, and so on. If you have an hyperbole, it's an exaggeration. You say, "You always do like this." This is often used by politicians as well. And if you have a litotes, it's the opposite, understatement. You never. And you have irony. You say one thing, but you mean something totally opposite. If you take Jonathan Swift's A Modest Proposal, when he offers the children and explains how you can cook them so they become quite nice to eat. Thereby they won't have a problem on Ireland with the starvation. We have the parallelism to express the same idea in two ways. We have to gather to be united. So it is time to close ranks, to stand firm against the enemy. So here are two exactly, they mean the same thing, but they are put together like this. You also have repetition. It's a reinforcement. My dream, my hope is, I have a dream, Martin Luther King. You have climax or intensification. You emphasize or add some words to display that something really engages you emotionally. You raise your voice. You can see that this really is important to you. If you use synonymity, that means that you use words of similar meaning to put on top of each other. And that could also be linked to intensification. I promise, I assure you, I solemnly swear to always be of help. If you have sarcasm, that's bitter irony. An anaphor, several sentences in a row, starts with the same words, I have a dream. So this is also typical for Martin Luther King. But it touches us, doesn't it? And then you have the decorum, to choose a suitable style. Academic upper formal style. That is when you study at school, the higher classes of English, academic studies, when you speak to the king, professors, dignitaries. But if you speak to, use formal style, when you, politicians, and language to create trust and confidence. Informal style is slang, colloquial language, is not used when you're writing. So adjust your speech or lecture to the audience and avoid sounding as if you're elevating your personal linguistic level, because it might sound odd if you speak to people who don't understand you or feel like, oh, you think you're a little bit better. But you need to be, so if you're a researcher, you should of course speak to research in their language and have terms, academic terms for the specific field. If you speak to an engineer, speak like an engineer and so on. But it depends on who you talk to, so think about that. And that also includes how we dress. It's not just the way we speak, but we can take that at another occasion. And finally, I'll show you a small example here. The more you listen and read what people, famous speakers, have said, you can learn from them. For instance, John F. Kennedy, he said, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. So he turned it. He said, together let us explore the stars, conquer the deserts, eradicate disease, tap the ocean depths, and encourage the arts and commerce. So you can see he's using all of these rhetorical figures and tropes to touch people's hearts. Tap the ocean depths. Of course he will not tap the ocean, but what will that make you feel? So I wish you the best of luck when you start using Elocutio to be more distinct, to be clear, and to really touch people's hearts.